Startup Central with me, Avan Dabash. This is the show where we get you all the focus on the startup world, technology, innovation, disruption, and anything that has to do with the new economy. And if you've got any unique ideas you want to pitch to us, you want to send us your feedback, please do reach out. Our email ID is suc@etnow.tv. We'd love to hear from you. Well, let's kickstart the show then and talk about nothing but the return of Bitcoin. It's the big story on Startup Central as the Bitcoin now is making quite a comeback and it's giving tough competition to Safehaven Gold. This cryptocurrency has seen quite a surge in 2020 and it's at its highest level since 2017. My colleague Mubina Kapasi joins in to tell us a little bit more about this special story where we compare the meteoric rise of Bitcoin and compare it to gold as an asset class. Mubina, what have been the findings?
Bitcoins are back in action. Investors are jumping into the world's most popular cryptocurrency, causing it to surge beyond $18,000 per Bitcoin. This is the highest level since the 16th of December 2017. The all-time high level for Bitcoin is just a tad bit below the 20,000 mark. But the ferocity with which investors seem to be lapping up Bitcoin, I wouldn't be surprised if we see it move to that level as well. In fact, if we just look at the last 24-hour swing, Bitcoin has moved between 16,500 to 18,500. That's a $2,000 swing in just the last 24 hours. In fact, many are going as far as saying that, look, perhaps this cryptocurrency's lure is, all the more exciting investors because of it being termed by many corners of the market as a safe haven asset. This is a label that's proudly and traditionally being owned by gold, but now it looks like with the whole macroeconomic environment containing low interest rates, containing enormous amounts of money printing, people are looking at a digital alternative to currency, and that's Bitcoin. Look at the returns, by the way, by both of these what we call as safe haven assets. Bitcoin has definitely outperformed gold, though of course all the attention has been garnered by gold. With gold reaching all of those levels, Bitcoin has actually surged tremendously with much more ferocity than gold. But nevertheless, we do have some people who are still hesitant on Bitcoin as well. They believe that there's a lot of volatility. It may not be suitable for everyone, and calling it a safe haven or a competent alternative to safe haven than gold may not be the right thing. But yeah, the fact is we've seen significant bouts of volatility in Bitcoin, and this year as well, no exception.
All right, thanks very much, Mubina, for putting all of that into perspective, and let's hear it out then from some expert voices that we've interacted with on the channel. Robert Kiyosaki as well as Chris Wood on talking about which is a better bet, bullion or Bitcoins.
Oh no, I think all investors should own both gold and Bitcoin because not because of the policies being implemented by the G7 central banks. Because as I said earlier, I'm assuming if I'm wrong, then this will be negative for Bitcoin and gold. But my base case is that the Fed maintains these dovish policies even after the pandemic is over. My base case is that you see a growing convergence of monetary and fiscal policy, by which I mean central banks, the Fed and the Euro will be increasingly monetizing government spending in America. And I'm also expecting sooner or later the Fed to lock in bond yields, peg Treasury bond yields higher up the yield curve, i.e. impose price controls in the Treasury bond market. Such policies are bullish for gold and for Bitcoin.
I should be Indian. I should say gold and silver, because that's real money. That's God's money. And then today there's Bitcoin, which is people's money. So I don't save money because it's opposite. Well, in here, I have gold, silver, Bitcoin, because this is outside the Federal Reserve banking system and outside Wall Street. So that's why I started my own gold mine in China, a silver mine in Argentina, and I have oil wells, because those are assets.
I don't expect to sell my gold and silver for a long time. I hope that my children have my gold and silver someday. No, everybody should own gold and silver, and I expect gold and silver to do very well in the next few years because there's going to be more turmoil, more chaos in the world economy and in governments and with currencies. No, don't sell your gold. Don't sell your silver. I plan to buy more, when this current correction ends. I hope I get the timing well enough.
All right, let's analyze this movement in Bitcoin because it's been very interesting to say the least. We've got Ajeet Khurana. He's a Bitcoin expert and the former CEO at Crypto Exchange, now joining in on Startup Central. Thank you so much, Ajeet, for taking time out and being with us. The rally really powering on when it comes to Bitcoin. It's surpassed its highest levels this year, and investors are really ascribing these gains to the kind of demand for the perceived inflation-resistant qualities. And, now the growing acceptance, wider mainstream acceptance of this cryptocurrency. What would you attribute this meteoric rise to?
Three things. First of all, the inflation-resistant quality that you talked about is true because the supply is limited, but it has to be seen in the context of central bankers all over the world just printing more money to avert COVID-19 related crisis. That, coupled with the fact that now governments all over the world are at least getting tolerant of Bitcoin. Few governments are actually enabling Bitcoin and helping them. And corporate and institutional money has entered Bitcoin. That, coupled with the fact that a lot of people don't talk about, which is decentralized finance, a lot of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is getting locked in and cannot any longer enter a supply in the market because that has been blocked into projects of decentralized finance. So on the one hand, very limited supply. On the other hand, demand is getting increasingly mainstream. That is the reason for the rise.
Okay. Fair enough. And, just give us a sense as to what your outlook is when it comes to just this label of Bitcoin as safe haven, because it's a label that's been traditionally held by gold. The drop in interest rates, the quantum of money printing by a lot of the global central bankers, all of that have caused many to opt for this digital mode of currency. Do you think that all of this can really attribute this now tag to Bitcoin as a category?
There is one very strong reason for that to be the case, and there is one strong thing that goes against it. The reason why Bitcoin can very well be called a safe haven is that its algorithm, its supply, its monetary policy, and I'm using conventional classic finance terms, are open to everybody because the algorithm which drives this cryptocurrency is open for all. We know what sort of supply will come in, how it will come in, when it will come in. As a consequence, it is not driven by a handful of representatives who form central bankers or committees that make decisions on money supply. That is the reason why it is indeed a non-correlated asset and safe haven. What goes against it is the fact that while someday it will be a truly non-correlated asset, today, when liquidity is taken away from the market, as happened, let's say, when COVID hit us, Bitcoin has shown for the time being some correlation with other asset classes, which did fall down. I think when the distribution, acceptance and adoption of Bitcoin will be even more than it is now, it will truly become a safe haven and a non-correlated asset.
Okay, fair enough. Do you think another attribute then, Abhijit, would be that there's now a stronger appetite for riskier assets, the wake of the unprecedented government and central bank stimulus measures in order to combat the COVID pandemic? There's this sort of a growing attraction to these inflation-proof qualities as well that you think are making it more attractive? And do you think that going forward, the uncertainty with which the world is surrounded by, that this sort of appetite for riskier assets is only going to drive up further?
I think that if you look back at the entire decade-long history of Bitcoin, maybe we can ignore the first 4 years where hardly anybody had heard of it. But so you look at the last 6 years of Bitcoin, and you see the periods where there has been substantial rise, such as a 20, 30, 40% rise in the period of a month or even less. and see what was happening in the world that correlated with those periods. Quite clearly, there were problems in the world financial economic system. For instance, Bitcoin did arise as a consequence of the 2008 global economic crisis. And we know this for a fact because the very first block of Bitcoin that was mined actually had the headline of London Times, which was talking about the global economic crisis. So it's not conspiracy theory, but I think that yes, the fact that interest rates have gone negative, the fact that you can no longer keep money in the bank and even get all of it back, as has happened around the world, the fact that riskier asset classes such as venture capital, private equity, etc., are yielding lower and lower despite continuing to be very risky, has definitely encouraged market participants to explore other risky asset classes where a substantial amount of return could be made. And given that, a lot of misgivings on the policy and regulatory framework which existed as recently as 2 years ago are now feeling a little comfortable. Even institutional money, or intelligent money, as some people would want to call it, is headed this way.
So, just going through some articles, it seems to indicate that the typical crypto investor base, it's been dominated by millennials, particularly men. And now we've been seeing, a lot of leaders within this space, or a lot of players within this space, moving away from short-term trading to actual long-term value investing, wealth building, if you will, within cryptocurrencies. What's your assessment of the typical investor base and how you see it changing, growing, pivoting?
The fact is that given a very, very low supply of new Bitcoin in the world, when you look at the volumes on exchanges, and there are exchanges which are showing billions of dollars worth it could be intraday trading or a few days, few weeks kind of trading. Today, as some of the supply is being sucked away by institutions who are just packing it away, supply reduces, demand, even if it remains constant, fundamental rule of microeconomics, price goes up. That is what we are experiencing.
Okay, so what's the future outlook for some of these companies who are in this space with their volumes growing quite exponentially due to this phenomenal industry-wide trend that we've been seeing? What's the future for some of these companies now?
So these companies are of many types. At the very basic level are companies which allow swapping fiat currency, which is your rupee, dollar, euro, what have you, with cryptocurrencies. They have been seeing an exponential rise in volumes. However, I must point out that go back to as recently as 2016 and 17, the margins or commissions or brokerage or whatever term you want to use used to be as high as 2 to 6%. Now the corresponding number, people can't even demand a 0.2%. Numbers are close to 0.1%. So the volumes may have gone up 100x, but margins also have gone up like 10, 15x. As a result, I think that the number of companies that are in this space of swapping cryptocurrency with fiat currency, there are just too many in the world. They are undifferentiated. They are commodity. So based on experience, customer service and security, the ones who will survive will capture the full market share. It may not be winner take all, but we certainly don't need the hundreds of cryptocurrency exchanges that exist around the world. I think it will come down to a handful. I must just close with a remark that the exchanges are not the only businesses. There is an entire ecosystem that has developed around it. There is a cooperative bank in India who has announced that they would give personal loans guaranteed by Bitcoin. And I know
Okay, unfortunately, I think that link seems to have snapped. But interesting talking about, perhaps now fewer players coming in. And what I also, Ajeet, I just wanted to get in your thoughts on this. While you do have a number of big companies now going out there and saying that they're going to invest a part of their assets, at least globally, in Bitcoin, it seems like a lot of, smaller investors are still very tentative about this. Do you think that you need to reach a stage for the Bitcoin to actually cross levels of 14, 15 lakh for retail investors to jump in large numbers and be driven enough to invest or trade in Bitcoins?
Allow me, I'll actually answer a slightly different question. I would caution retail investors that, they can make their own decisions of whether to buy at 5, 10, 15 or 20 lakhs. That is everybody's individual decision. And, retail investors sometimes are known to enter at the peaks of the market. Everybody's individual decision, but do not get caught in people trying to prey upon your ignorance because you may not know enough about how to buy Bitcoin, where to buy Bitcoin from or store Bitcoin. Make sure you do your study and research before getting in. For all retail investors, let me point out, there is no graph in the world that keeps going only up. Come in only if you have the appetite to bear the risk associated with this rather risky asset class.
Okay, so going forward, while some are saying that the intensity with which the cryptocurrency has rebounded doesn't match that of what we saw in 2017, and although the Bitcoin is close to its all-time rupee high, the other cryptos like Ethereum and Ripple, etc., are not. What's the outlook in terms of when you can see some sort of a convincing move there?
So here's the thing, just to draw an analogy, I hate to draw analogies for Bitcoin, but just to draw an analogy, to look at some of the top 10 high market cap stocks and to compare their movement with penny stocks, I think that leads to very bad conclusions about the state of the market. Bitcoin accounts for close to 2/3 of the market capitalization of all cryptocurrency put together. And all cryptocurrency, we're talking about 1,000 different coins. So one coin accounts for 2/3 of the market. So to that extent, I think that it is not just the bellwether, but also the really the only very valuable coin. Yes, there are others, because if it's 2/3, then there are big winners amongst the remaining 1/3. I think that we have always seen that when Bitcoin takes the lead, others take a little longer. There's a lag because the volumes are being driven by Bitcoin. Institutions favor Bitcoin because it has depth. If you look at order books of various exchanges, you can't get depth in other coins. You can get it only in Bitcoin. So I think it is reasonable for Bitcoin to take the lead. I have no prediction about whether all the coins will follow, because I also believe that the world does not need so many coins. We don't need 1,000 crypto coins. We probably need, I can't imagine, more than 50. Probably the real number is 20. So make sure that you're aligning with the best coins.
Okay. It's been lovely chatting with you. Thanks so much for sharing with us your outlook and giving us a sense as to how this, cryptocurrency has really skyrocketed, what the outlook is, and how we can see now perhaps more retail participation given this meteoric rise. Tell you what, we'll take a short break right here on the show. Do stay with us. We've got all the top fatafat stories coming up in the startup universe when we return.